Students, yesterday we discussed about the system models for distributed computing systems. Under that, we have two modules. Which are the two models that we studied, students? Two system models, client server model, and which is another one? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, tell me. Which are the two models we studied as part of system models yesterday? Arjun? Vishal?
Entire model, sir.
Huh?
Entire model and client server model.
Client server model and
Entire model, sir.
what is that entire model? No, man. See, don't confuse. Entire model is a variant of client server model. Under client server model, there is like basic model is two-tier model. Then further we have three-tier model. Then we have n-tier model. All those things are part of peer-to-peer systems or client server model. Then the second variant is peer-to-peer model or peer-to-peer system. Under system models, we have two types, client server model and peer-to-peer model. In peer-to-peer model, each computer within the network has the capability to act as both client as well as server. When it is making a request, it becomes client. When it is servicing the request of another node, it becomes server. Don't get confused. See here. See client server architecture. We have basic model, that is classical model or the two-tier model, then three-tier model, then we have n-tier model. That is client server architecture. Then second one is peer-to-peer architecture style, where here you can see here the nodes are connected through network infrastructure. Then each node can become client as well as server. And the advantage part is that whenever any node decides not to be part of the network, they can detach from the network. And when they feel like to be part of the network, they can attach to the network. That is another advantage of this peer-to-peer network. After that, we discussed about models for inter-process communication. It's a fundamental aspect of distributed systems design and implementation. And here the IPC happens either for the purpose of exchanging data or for the purpose of controlling and coordinating the activities of the processes. So that is the purpose for which we use IPC within the context of distributed computing. And another way of achieving this is by using remote procedure calls. So we told that by using the technologies like .NET, J2EE, we can implement RPC. Then message-based communication. How the components within the computer will communicate by exchanging the messages. Hence it got its name, message-based communication. So within the distributed setup, this is very important. And it encompasses any form of data representation. That means data can be anything. It can be any type of data, and that is limited in size and time. Okay, that means that is limited in size and time. Why? Because data will be sent in terms of packets. So therefore, it is limited in size and time. So it can be achieved by using remote procedure call or serialized object instance or generic message. Yesterday, we also discussed about what is serialization. Serialization is nothing but embedding an object in the form of a file, then sending that file from one device to another device within the network. At the receiving end, they do deserialization, means they will decrypt the file and they will extract the object and they will read what is the data that is there in that object. Okay, then we also discussed about what is RPC. Remote RPC is nothing but remote procedure call. That means, say, see, there can be two difference between invoking a method within the system. That is different issue. Then invoking a method which is part of another system. So if you do that, we call it as remote procedure call. If you are invoking a method which is part of another node which is connected through the network, if you are doing that, we call it as remote procedure call. Then distributed. So when the system itself is distributed, then obviously the objects are also distributed. And that is quite common in object-oriented setup or object-oriented paradigm. And also we discussed about what are the standards available for achieving, sir, or what are the standards available for achieving communication between distributed objects. So examples of those standards include CORBA, that is common object request broker architecture, and another one is DCOM, then RMI, and .NET remoting. And for you, the familiar things are CORBA and DCOM, COM and DCOM. See, COM is to provide communication between the objects. Then DCOM is for distributed applications. That is dynamic component object model. Then also we discussed about what are agents and active objects. Students, what are software agents? Within the context of software, what is an agent? Anyone? Srinidhi, are you here? Srinidhi? Asta Bachawat? Hello? You
Yes,
should
sir.
reply. Yeah, tell me what is an agent?
A
Say
software
is,
developer
yeah,
is doing work behalf of us.
yeah. Say for example, one object is you are assigning a task to the software to do some task on your behalf. So obviously it will be creating some object which will take care of the task. Then we call that object as agent. Since it is doing the work, it is active, isn't it? That is an active object. Then what is web service? What is web service? Web service, basically the purpose of web services are to provide services. To provide services using web. So when I say using web or HTTP, an implementation of remote procedure call concept over HTTP, thus allowing the interaction of components that are developed with different technologies. So look at this. That means it will help to communicate heterogeneous objects, heterogeneous and distributed objects. In case of web services, it provides communication for heterogeneous and distributed objects over HTTP. A web service is exposed as a remote object hosted on a web server, and method invocation are transformed in HTTP requests using specific protocols such as SOAP protocol and REST protocol. SOAP already we have told, simple object access protocol, and REST means representational state transfer. See, now there is a very high demand for REST, people who can implement REST SOAP and REST protocols. Now in web services, there is a concept called as microservices. Students, you can explore. Okay, remember that keyword, microservices. What are microservices? So microservices are nothing but one microservice will do one functional that means you will be implementing one functional requirement as one microservice within the context of web services, and we call it as microservices. And the communication between such microservices will happen with the help of either SOAP protocol or REST protocol. It is better for you if you further explore about microservices. That is beyond the syllabus. You can explore what are microservices, and that may be useful for your interviews and so on. Now we'll continue with the remainder of the syllabus, that is models for message-based communication. That means what are the models that we can use to achieve message-based communication. The first one is point-to-point message model. Under that, publish and subscribe message model. Students, what is this point-to-point message model? See, point-to-point is nothing but peer-to-peer. What is the meaning of peer-to-peer, students? Students, we need to understand point-to-point message model or the P2P model means it can be called as point-to-point or peer-to-peer. Both are same. Don't confuse. See, any given node within the network will be connected to all the nodes within the network. That means it can have access to any node within the network. That is called point-to-point message model. So that means it can send message to any node within the network, within the peer-to-peer or point-to-point model network. Then publish and subscribe message model. With that we'll see what is push strategy and pull strategy. Then request reply message model. So is it given here? Okay, I'll tell you. It is not code in the PPT. I'll tell you. Okay, second one is publish and subscribe message model. Students, here you need to understand what is push strategy and what is pull strategy. See, when you develop certain service, you have to register it. That is called push strategy. Then when you are consuming it, we call it as pull strategy. If you are registering the service, that is push, and if you are consuming the service, that is pull. So during this course of time, either push or pull strategy, you have to deal in terms of messages. All the requests will be made in the form of messages. So that's why it is called as message-based communication model. Then request reply message model. So request reply is a very simple model. If you consider the example of two-tier architecture, that is client server, simple client server architecture, if one node is making a request and another node will reply for that, that is called request and reply message model. Okay, that's about models for message-based communication. Now, what are the technologies that are used for distributed computing? RPC, then distributed object frameworks like CORBA and DCOM. These are the two major technologies which are used for distributed computing. RPC is the fundamental abstraction enabling the execution procedures on client's request. Upon client request, the procedures will be executed on the remote machine. So hence it got its name, remote procedure call. See, procedures are nothing but the functions. You need to understand. So remotely executing the functions. The concept of remotely executing the functions is called as RPC. RPC allows extending the concept of a procedure call beyond the boundaries of a process and a single memory address space. That means it is not like you are executing the function in your local machine. See, in your local machine, you will be having some address space to execute the processes. It is not like that. No, you are violating that boundary and you are connecting to some other node, which is part of the network. And in that node, you are executing some method or a procedure. Hence, we call it as remote procedure call, and it will execute in a address space. It will execute in its address space, not in the address space of your system. The called procedure and calling procedure may be on the same system, or they may be on different systems. That means when you want to execute a procedure in the context of distributed system, so there is no mandatory that the method should be within the system. That method can be part of any system. If it is part of some other system, we call it as remote procedure call. The important aspect of RPC is marshalling and unmarshalling. Students, tell me what is marshalling and unmarshalling, networking concept. Anyone? Hello? Students, tell me what is marshalling and unmarshalling. In this diagram, it will come. Yes, I'll tell you in this RPC diagram. Tell me what is marshalling and unmarshalling. Anyone? Spurti? Vinny? Maithili? Abhishek? Hello? Hello guys? Anyone? Hello? Students, marshalling, see, students, when you have a lot of data to be sent from one node to another node, so that data will be sent in terms of packets, and it is not one single packet which carries all the data. So the data will be divided into small pieces, and that will be packed inside the packets, and those packets will be given the sequence numbers. Okay, that is called marshalling. Then at the receiving end, they have to recognize the packets, and they have to frame a proper sequence so that they can read the message. That is called unmarshalling. So we have two important technologies which to implement distributed computing. One is remote procedure call, another one is distributed object frameworks. Example for distributed object frameworks include CORBA and DCOM, and the definition the distributed object frameworks will extend object-oriented programming systems by allowing objects to be distributed across a heterogeneous network and facilitates so that they can coherently act as though they were in the same address space. That means the purpose of this distributed object framework is to facilitate the objects which are part of different nodes which are heterogeneous systems. Say, for example, one can be Windows based machine, another can be Linux based machine, or one may be using Pentium processor, another may be using AMD processor. That means the systems are heterogeneous, but still they are supporting for object communication across the network, across the distributed network, and that concept is called distributed object framework. Now let us see how to like the working of remote procedure call. Now I'll take the example of two nodes. There is node A and node B. You can see here we have node A and node B. Now node A wants to, or node A, so here this is the main procedure. It want to invoke a procedure which is part of node B. That means in node here, node B is having a procedure. Node B is having a procedure that has to be executed. For that, node A is making a call to execute procedure C. Now you can see here we have procedure A and procedure B, and program A, the client program. So this is a client program actually which is making a request to this node B to execute procedure C. And here parameters marshalling and procedure name. That means to execute the method, some parameters are required. It is sending the parameters of this method, then marshalling and procedure name. So marshalling means, so like the data. So parameters are to be packed inside the packets, isn't it? So then those packets have to be given proper sequence numbers. Say for example, when you are dividing huge data in within 10 packets, then you have to specify the order. Okay, so packet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that when you put those packets in the same sequence, so it will become one full-fledged message, isn't it? Like that. Then it is sending, and this is the below layer. You can see this is a network infrastructure. What it is doing here, we have a main procedure. That main procedure has procedure A and procedure B, and here from program A, by using remote procedure call, we are making we want to call a method of node B, which is nothing but the procedure C. For that, we are sending the parameters, we are marshalling. So when we marshal, we encrypt the data and we give the sequence number for the packets, and we are embedding information about what is the name of the procedure that we want to invoke, then what are the parameters required that we are sending through the network. And here the parameters are received, then unmarshalling is done. During unmarshalling, what will happen means, it will identify the packets and it will rearrange the sequence, then it will decrypt the data. Then here there is a software module called as RPC service, that is remote procedure call service. This will check. So say for example, you want you are willing to, that means the request is for remotely executing procedure C. Here it will check whether procedure C is registered in its registry or not. If it is registered, then it will send that information to procedure C to execute. So now procedure C will get executed. Then to execute procedure C, so program C will execute, program C server, that is RPC server, will execute. Then its output will be sent using marshalling. So marshalling means, say output is a message, and that will be broken down into packets, and the packets will be assigned sequence numbers and encrypted. That will be sent through network, and here from node B, it will do unmarshalling and it will rearrange the sequence of the packets, and to display that, it will take the help of RPC library to display the output, or to access the output, it will take the help of RPC library. Then here we have procedure C, node B. Okay, finally it will get the, like, it will get the status of, like, the outcome of procedure C. That is how the communication happens between node A and node B. So this is the diagram of RPC. So you may get among these two diagrams, you will be asked to write any one diagram. So that is, you may get a question on RPC, or distributed object programming model. How to implement this, like IPC using distributed computing. So you can take the example of RPC or distributed object programming model. Similarly, this distributed object programming model. Students, anything you want to ask in this remote procedure call? Look at this diagram. You understood what is marshalling? Hello?
Yes, sir.
What is marshalling?
converting the data into packets and sending to one network to another. It's called marshalling, and rearranging the packets. It's called unmarshalling.
Unmarshalling. So while rearranging, what is the criteria? That sequence number. Look at the sequence number and rearrange. Then if it is encrypted, it has to be decrypted. That is also part of unmarshalling only. During marshalling, encryption may happen. During unmarshalling, decryption will happen. Isn't it? Then what is the role of RPC library? So if you want to implement, say for example in Java, network program if you want to do, you will add java.net. What is that? Library. Similarly for RPC, there will be some library support. That is RPC library. Okay. Then similarly here we have RPC service. What is the role of RPC service? Our RPC service is a software module which maintains a procedure registry. In that procedure registry, it will be having the list of all the procedures that are part of that node. It will check if any node is making a request for a particular procedure to execute. It will check first of all whether that method is registered in that node or not. If it is registered, then it will allow that procedure to execute. That is the task of RPC service. Okay, the role of RPC library and RPC service is very important here. And procedure registry. Procedure registry is nothing but it's a registry where all the procedures of that node will be registered. Say this is one computer, we are calling it as node B. So inside that computer, how many procedures are registered that are maintained in this procedure registry? Then distributed object programming model. So how the distributed objects will communicate with each other. So it's even though it looks very tedious, so for better understanding, they have given the sequence numbers. So first here you have an instance. Instance means object. So here we have one object that wants to communicate with remote object. See here, this is the instance is the source object, and this is the remote instance to which it wants to communicate. Now in between, what are the things that will happen, and in what sequence it will happen? So that is very important for us to understand. So first, now the instance of the object. So the instance of the class, which we call as an object, asks for reference. Where to check for the reference? Remote reference module. There will be something called as remote reference module. Through that, it will ask for the reference, and this entire thing is called as application A. And see here in node A, we have one application. Say for example, I'll consider this is an example. This is one banking application, Indian Bank application, and I'll consider application B is MasterCard, Visa or MasterCard application. So as per our example, node A is Indian Bank application, which is a banking software, and node B is MasterCard. What is that MasterCard? Which will provide the gateway services. Now the object of banking application wants to communicate with the MasterCard application. So it will ask for the reference. That is the step 1. By using the remote reference module, it will try to connect through the network. Then what is the step 3? So in that node also there is the same remote reference module. There is something called as remote reference module. Then it will try to connect the object skeleton. What is object skeleton? Any idea? See, object skeleton, it will tell you, so what are all the data members and member functions of that object, but it will not really reveal, say for example, what is the data associated with that variables. Say for example, it is having some two data members. It will not reveal what is the data stored in that, but it will tell, say, like there are two data members and two member functions. Like that, it will tell. That is called object skeleton. That means it will give you the names of the data members and member functions, but it will not reveal its implementation. Through that, so it will contact the object skeleton. Through that, it will activate the object remote object will get activated. That is step number 5. Then once the remote object gets activated, then it will inform. Now it has to inform that I am connected to your application. So for that purpose, through remote object reference, so it will get connected to the network. That is step number 7. Step number 8, so it will inform the remote reference module of Node A, that is banking software. Then this banking software will be having one object proxy. So object proxy means just like, see, the proxy means not real. Say, what is the difference between proxy server and actual server? Before contacting the actual server, if the packets are passing through another server, okay, we call it as proxy server. And the purpose of that proxy is to check whether the request is coming from a legitimate node or not. Okay, such verifications will be done by this object proxy. That means whether the right object is trying to connect to me or not, that will be evaluated. Okay, if yes, then it will get connect to the object instance. Then it has to send an acknowledgement, isn't it? Yes, I got connected to you. This banking application should tell. So that it will intimate once again through the network. That is step 11 and 12. Then step number 13 is it will contact the remote reference module of Node B. That is step 13. 14. Then here it is having object skeleton. This is also having object skeleton. It will evaluate whether the acknowledgement has come from the legitimate object or not. Yes, if yes, it will communicate to the remote instance. That is remote object of MasterCard. That is step 15 and 16. Okay, then 17. Okay, so see how this will show how. Okay, now if it is requesting for a particular, okay, if it's making some particular request, so that will be serviced. Okay, that request will be serviced through step number 17. So step number 18, get connect to this network. Step number 19, okay, sending the reply back to this remote reference module, to the object proxy, then finally to this object. That means you can assume that some transaction is happening between Node A and Node B. That is between banking application and MasterCard application. So for you, what is important? It is very difficult for you to remember this sequence of steps. Okay. So what is my suggestion is, if you get a question on like explain the model used for achieving distributed communication with the help of a neat diagram, then you should explain RPC, because it is quite simple. So this is a tedious process. Distributed object programming model is tedious process, but if they ask very specifically, then you don't have any choice. You have to write this diagram. Okay, students. So what I suggest you is, you better practice the diagrams, because during exam times you cannot mug up the diagrams. So before that, you should try once or twice, so the sequence will be remembered in your mind. If you write the diagram, you can remember the sequence. Then you need not mug up. Examples for distributed object frameworks, as already we have discussed: Corba, DCOM, Complex, Java remote method invocation, that is RMI, which is part of Java and J2EE technologies. Then when it comes to .NET, we have a concept called as remoting, that is .NET remoting. it is used to implement IPC within the context of .NET framework. It's an uniform platform for accessing remote objects from within any application developed in any of the languages supported by .NET. See, you need to understand here the limitation of this .NET remoting is it can deal with only .NET objects. Then similarly, RMI. Next is service-oriented computing. So this already we have finished. Okay, service-oriented computing is built upon service-oriented architecture. So, okay, that we are already finished. So these things already we have finished. So web services already we have finished. This is an web service interaction, web services interaction. Just look at this diagram. So here we have web service client, and it will send query to UDDI. That means UDDI is universal data discovery and integration. Students, once again I repeat, remember UDDI means universal data discovery and integration. That means, see, what is the, we need to understand the role of UDDI. Say for example, you are a vendor, you will develop some web services, and you have to register those web services in a registry, and such registry is called as UDDI. Okay, so there is a web server which will be hosting this UDDI registry. This web server is having UDDI registry. Inside that, you have to register services that you have developed, so that other nodes, so that the users or the end users can check in the UDDI registry for the available services. Then they can consume the services upon request. Then what is this WSDL? Web services description language. That means the web services are written using this WSDL, and that will be registered in this UDDI registry, and that UDDI registry is part of the web server. Okay, now similarly, let us assume there is a web service. Okay, actually there is a web service which is hosted on web server, and web services are developed by using WSDL. Like this, there will be so many vendors who will be developing web services. They are all registering that to the UDDI registry. Okay, so one common place to register the web services is UDDI registry, universal data and discovery integration. That is the abbreviation of UDDI. See, from here there is a client who want to avail some service. So it will, through the network, it will try to contact UDDI registry. It will check if the service that he wants is available. Then he can make a request. Now in turn, what this UDDI registry will do, it will invoke the particular application who has registered the service, so that from there this client can get the service. Say for example, so now this say for example, this web client, this web services client is making a request. Sorry, is checking in the UDDI registry for some particular service. Say for example, Google Map. He's searching for Google Map service. Yes, it is available, and let us assume it is implemented by this application. Now this will inform that, this UDDI registry will inform that one particular user is requesting for Google Map service. Please provide the service. Now indirectly, this web client will be made to connect to this application using the network infrastructure. It is using the internet. How we access web services? Using the internet, isn't it? Just if you have the internet connection and web browser, that is good enough to consume web services. Okay, so here there are two roles which are of very important. One is service provider and service consumer. Now here, who is service provider? This fellow is the service provider. You can see the arrow mark. So this is a cursor. This fellow is the service provider, and who is the requester? He is the requester. Web service client. He is the requester and he is the provider. And where is the registry? Here is the registry. And what is this? This is internet. So by this we are ending module 1 and 2. Students, now we have completed both the module 1 and 2. So what are the things that we learned? We understood eras of computing. So parallel era and sequential era. Then principles of parallel and distributed computing. Then hardware architectural styles for computing, parallel computing. Then hardware architectural styles for distributed computing. Then levels of parallelism. Then distributed computing models. So message passing interfaces, CORBA, web services, and services oriented architecture, that is SOA. Have I sent these notes to you, students? Hello? Hello? Spurti,
No,
are you
sir.
here? Hello?
Sir, no, sir, we didn't send it.
No, sir.
Okay, today I'll send. So
Yes.
I'll send it to Spurti. She's your CR, right? She will share that with you people. That's all for today's class. I'll take the attendance, 1 minute. Students, in this chapter, we are left with one concept, that is virtualization. Why? Because in the next module, we will be studying virtualization as one complete chapter. So now I have kept it pending. What's the date today? 31st.
Yes, sir.